Well. Welcome back to Krown's Crypto Cave. It is a gloriously new Monday morning for a new week of new opportunities and plenty to talk about, actually, as I do want to follow up on yesterday's short-term and actually long-term analysis as well, as Bitcoin is in motion right now as we speak. Other than that, I do want to put the focus over here on the Krown Chain application, which we found at app.krownchain.net. And what do we see? We do see that open interest still above the critical read that we've been looking at for the past about month and a half to almost 2 months now, currently hovering above that critical $2.1.5 billion marker. So for the last month and a half, and this is very important to understand right here, for the last month and a half, while Bitcoin was operating between the price action range between about 10,100 to 11,000 to the upside, the open interest was essentially representing that as derivative of price action by operating between the ranges of 1.9.5 billion to 2.1.5 billion. And once that started to actually break outside the top side of that range, we did see open interest go up with price action. Volume obviously rising as well, plus historical volatility percentile also rising. All do suggest that the breakout is real. So I do still stick with that, and I do think that it is important to highlight that that area is still being met with this price action. Looking at the Bitcoin dominance, pretty much the same thing what we looked at yesterday to today. I don't have anything new to add there. Long term, I'm still looking at a major, massive reversal off this current area, but that can still take, half a year to a year. And looking at the fear ingredient index, actually coming down about 3 points, which is of interest, I suppose. Come from a 55 to a 52, more or less neutral though, as Bitcoin does take the path of least resistance to the upside. Looking at the data tab, do we have anything new over here to be aware of? Yeah, the premium on futures over spot is actually increasing as this run goes on, which is indicative that the market makers kind of pricing this one in, which is, well, to be expected. Looking at the global funding rate, what do we see? Still holding the range as well. Not really anything too much of interest there. And then when we actually go down to the minutia, I think that this is so interesting. Femex has, once I started to actually keep an eye on this, has been consistently an outlier no matter what the exchange, no matter what the other exchanges are doing, whether they're positive or negative. In this case, this one has just been massively positive more often than not, with everything else kind of hanging around that 0.01% region. Femex is several degrees higher than that at about 0.04%. Not anything really to make out of that right now. It's just an interesting thing to kind of keep an eye on because I don't trade there myself. I don't really know much about Femex, but it's seen as it actually is kind of grabbing a little bit of the market share right now. It would be something worth monitoring just over time. I guess it's a little bit still too early to put a real judgment on it, but definitely worth monitoring, we'll say. Anyways, going to the actual price action charts themselves right here, and what do we see? We do see that Bitcoin still flagging out. So yesterday over this past weekend, I did say once Bitcoin hit about 11,500-ish region, which was the first target off of this whole consolidation breakout right here, which was initiated on Friday by that break above $11,000 even, Bitcoin was likely to play back a pullback to about 11.2. We got that right here. The next day was just basically sideways flagging out, and that is going to be interpreted as more or less good by this market. And seeing as Bitcoin has still failed to break down, we are going to start to build up some hidden bullish divergences here. Credit to Caretaker's RSI for this one, as it does get it right on the 2 hour, and I believe the 3 hour is forming, or yes, actually it's fully confirmed here. So that is of interest, although to be fair, that one's mostly played out. To be fair, usually I just target a move to the top side of the range. In this case, that would be, about 11,420-ish region. So you already got, I guess you already got kind of your $100 move from that. But realistically, with this kind of flagging out, and more importantly, taking into context a greater move, of which, again, this does have an overall measure move much higher, not just 11,500-ish region, but actually 11,750 or 11,800-ish region, which would be the 236 fib right here, and also the topside liquid zone, and also the same area that Bitcoin broke down from in early September, right after it gave up, the 11,000s and 12,000s for good for a while. Well, yes, I do still think that this gets hit actually sooner rather than later in this case, and very rarely do I make more aggressive reads like that. And of course, this is now my opinion getting in the way of technical analysis, and I want to deliberately separate these two things because my opinion is bullshit, it's bogus, I don't trade it, but it's fucking YouTube, so might as well talk. However, technical analysis, is more cut and dry. We're hanging out right here at about the 382 fib rate right now, which is also the same sort of liquid zone that Bitcoin was operating in August of this year at 11.5. So as long as Bitcoin's below it, is it time to get too excited? Not necessarily from that perspective, but the second that we do get a 4 hour dildo closure anywhere above, let's call it 11,450, I would look for that next extension of almost another $400 to the upside. somewhere around 11,800-ish region and a greater pullback from that region. I believe that we've mostly seen this area kind of being played out right now, and especially with that hidden bullish divergence, plus just the way that it is flagging out around a resistance typically does equate to good things. The general knowledge is where you kind of consolidate around is typically where you're going to break around, and in this case right here, hanging out at a high level, especially over the weekend when it had plenty of chances to actually dupe it off, of which, it did try. We did get that move to 11.2 when we basically got two of them right here, although this one a little bit higher at about 11.250-ish region. The fact is that it did stay up, and a nice little healthy consolidation likely does lead to further continuation in this case. And looking at momentum oscillators there, more or less agree with it, as I imagine we do see 4-hour Stokes looking like they are kind of snaking around right now, technically to the downside, but I'm curious what the reverse Stoke indicator cross would say about this one, as yes, it would show that any sort of a 4-hour total closure about above 11,400-ish region would be enough to turn that back onto the upside, and that obviously would very likely push Bitcoin through this next blue box territory right here, and obviously have greater implications with then producing that full-on mesh move all the way up to about 11,800. And just as an offside here as well, when you do have a formation like this, in this case, this was your, wrong one. This was your ascending triangle right here. You typically do go for the full measured move before any greater pullback. Now, when I say greater pullback, I mean a pullback on that same time frame. In this case, a daily. So if you're looking at like a 4-hour, a 2-hour, an hourly, obviously that's of a different nature. And in this case, we did have a little bit of a pullback there, about a $300 pullback. However, right now, I would say on a daily, no, this is still in the process of continuation, and daily momentum oscillators do quite literally suggest that as well. We do see daily Stokes still heading upwards and onwards over there, and this is not relevant for that time frame, obviously. And looking at daily RSI, I think that this one really does kind of help wrangle it in, as it's getting back into the bullish control zone for the first time in a while. Actually, the last time that we were kind of spending any time within here was, of course, August, right? And with that said, I actually would look for a little bit of a slight pullback relatively soon, just based off this, because a lot of the time, the first time that you get back into the bullish control zone from after being away from it for a while, you will get kind of a natural pushback. In this case right here, I think that we're getting close to that, but probably another leg of continuation first and foremost, and then play it out. And long term, as we've been saying, this is rather constructive behavior here, but when we're talking about long term, we're talking about months and months out, so it's not really like relevant to this exact moment. And following up from the daily jewel buy signal right here on the 7th of October, which was, where exactly was that? Yeah, that was out of this space right here. I wasn't looking at that one as something that I was going to play, but it was kind of giving a bias for an upside breakout, an upside resolution on this one. And well, there you go. And I do believe that this one, as it does get above this fib, actually does suggest that yes, we do have more to go as well. All of these are maintaining their nice, aggressive, positive slopes. So yes, I would be looking at this as likely to get another leg up first, rather than play back a pullback all the way down to about 11,150-ish region, of which I should probably talk about right now. So let's say, what happens if Bitcoin gets rejected from this 11,450-ish liquid zone, a few more times? Let's say we get a couple more spikes up into this region, but no closures above this region, and like we go around till the end of the day, and we're still kind of hovering below this 11,450 pivot. Well, in that case, I probably would start to look for a pullback once again, down to about 11,150 or 11,200-ish region. I don't think that would be too problematic. In fact, that's only relevant for the medium-term timeframes right now. As far as anything else goes, I do believe that would just be a gap fill on CME's closure on Friday. And someone was asking a really, really good question about this the other day, like, why do you put so much emphasis on CME closures on Friday? Well, being as it is a professional exchange and does not trade over the weekends, that means that if CME has a breakout on a Friday, which it did, it closed on new highs right here above our middle of September highs right here on a closing basis, that is, of course, and that also did, of course, complete this ascending triangle to the upside. Well, with that in mind, with that in mind, let's now reflect upon what it means to actually break out on a Friday right before the weekend is about to come, which again you cannot actually trade on. Now, of course, you can hedge on other exchanges and whatnot, but we're just going with the straight and dry, and this is coming from mostly traditional market knowledge. And the reason why that is important is because when you do break out or break down or have like a really good closure or a terrible closure on a Friday, it means that the people who were taking those positions are fine, well, maybe not fine, but they are comfortable enough to hold them through a weekend where they actually won't be able to do shit if price action were to move, which typically does. The market doesn't necessarily stop over a weekend, even though technically you can't trade. Well, in this case, when you do end above a resistance like that, it's saying that, hey, we're comfortable with holding this one into the weekend, and well, there you go. I mean, I think that kind of speaks for itself. And of course, CME's opening on a nice gap up like this typically is going to be a good sign. This is what you want to see actually on your breakouts. We saw the same thing over here in June, July breakout, or sorry, I should say May, June, July breakout. This 3-month long consolidation right above the low 9,000s in what you could also argue was just another ascending triangle right here as well. And Bitcoin loves its triangles apparently, as it does seem to play out kind of like par for the course. Let me just make sure that I'm recording. I am recording. The microphone's working, so that's good. And in this case right here, very similar action. I know a lot of the Gap boys were looking for this one to get filled exactly, to the fucking T at about 9,600 or 9,650-ish region. We've been saying for a while now that no, this one was filled way back on over here in early September. This is the action that you're looking for. You're just looking for the moniker of it getting picked up. There's not like a fucking maths equation that gets it like, oh, because we closed exactly this price on this day, and then we go on this way, and then it's like it's off the fucking charts here. It's like, no. And I would imagine that a lot of people talking about gaps and making them into a goddamn meme, because it's unfortunate that they have become a meme, because they are like actually important, but for whatever reason they have in cryptocurrency land. I'd probably argue that a lot of those people have never traded Trisha marks, because this is quite literally a gap fill right here. There's no problem with this action at all. And my point is, when referencing that, is that I'd probably expect something similar over here as well. This is going to become a very big pivot on the market going forwards. And I would go as far as saying that I'm long-term bullish on Bitcoin as long as we're above this breakout point, which we could colloquially refer to as 11,000. Technically speaking, it's maybe a little bit. It's basically 11,000. Yeah, it's 11,000. Let's just say it's 11,000. How about that? Just make it nice and easy. So as long as Bitcoin's above 11,000, I am long-term bullish. We'll say short-term and medium-term. That can obviously change and go to and fro. But the ranges are quite set here, of course, and that would be all the way down to about 11,100ish region, even on a short-term or medium-term time frame range. So that's what I'm looking for right now. But realistically speaking, I actually do think that Bitcoin gets another leg to the upside before we actually play a pullback. Looking at the 12-hour, do we see anything of interest here as well? We do see 12-hour stocks actually looking like they do want to cross down, so maybe this does throw a whole spanner in my works of this whole analysis. Let's see what the reverse stochastic indicator cross would have to say about that. Yeah, it will turn down with any sort of a closure below 11,415. So everything is kind of lining up with continuation now or pullback. So if you don't see Bitcoin above that 11.4 pivot, probably by the time this 12-hour closes, do we play out a pullback on a short-term time frame? Probably yes. Does that mean that I'm long-term bearish? No, it doesn't. I'm just looking for a move maybe back down to like 11.2 or 11.1. I don't really have a strong opinion on that. This range is rather tight in this region, and I'd be looking for the long-term move as well. And I'm also looking to get rid of my fucking calls. Fucking I hate holding premium. I absolutely fucking hate it. Maybe getting rid of them as soon as this thing moves. Looking at the 10-hour, what do we see? We do see it's actually crossing back onto the upside as well, and I guess I'll spoil the surprise here. The 10 hours have actually been really taken over for the 12-hour as of recent times. I've just found it a lot more accurate with getting the momentous drives, and in this case right here, after flagging out for a little bit of time, you can imagine if that is gonna hold true, then I look for this next one to produce that next short term, or sorry, I should say like medium term move up to the long term time frame target at about 11,800ish region, in line with the 236 fib right here that we looked at. And again, just going from fib to fib, I like how all these things do line up. Not 0.5s at 11,150, which is basically our, what do you want to call it? I'd basically just call this long-term range as well. I have been saying 11,000, but it's all basically the same thing to me, really. I mean, $150 delta between the two is nothing. And then, of course, we got the 382 exactly where we are right now at 11,450. And if we were to move to the downside, this would still be relevant down here, the 786 and the 618. But for right now, there's no real major talks of that happening, especially as long as Bitcoin's above, let's call it just 11,000. If you want to be super exact with it, it's 11,100. Yeah, you could say that as well. I don't really have a strong opinion on that. I mean, these are minutia details towards a greater picture. So for right now, I do believe that Bitcoin is still good to go, and this is further enhanced. This is further verified by the historical volatility percentile read on the lower term timeframes, like the 4-hour right here. Did take a nice little little rest yesterday, but with that rest does kind of allow it to kind of reinvigorate itself as it does go back down to single digit reads, which does imply that the next expansion phase likely is coming relatively soon. And I'd imagine we see something a little more aggressive on an hourly. And yes, it has been contracting steadily since our breakout a couple days ago, on Friday the 10th, and maybe takes a little bit longer here, but all of that is starting to line up with each other. So yes, that is what I'm looking at right now. Let's go check out the 2-day and 3-day as well. I'm curious what they say. 2-day had a very, 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 very good close on new highs as well. I mean, this is, I just like this chart right here. 2-day Stokes looking at nice and healthy to the upside. 2-day RSI, very constructive, about to reach in the bullish control zone once again. And, long term, that has been, that has been constructive going all the way back on over here since fucking May. Looking at the 3-day, what do we see here as well? Basically the same thing. And I think that we just closed. Yeah, no, we didn't just close. No, we did just close. Yeah, we did just close. We closed it. We didn't close it. Yes, we closed it. We actually did close a 3-day dildo last night as well. So this one's nice and fresh and looking good to me as well. 3-day Stokes popping up, and 3-day RSI still looking very constructive, as I've been saying. But this one has some more time to bake, it looks like to me as well. So, if Bitcoin wanted to come all the way back down and fill the last 3-day open, which is basically around 11,000, that would be completely fine. Again, I want to reiterate that long term, nothing really changed to me above 11,000. Below 11,000, I would be looking for medium term moves back down into the middle of the range, somewhere around 10.5 region. But again, that's a little bit further away from where we are right now. So I don't think it's like as relevant to what I should be talking about. And back on to referencing the daily right here, we do see that historical volatility percentile is starting to somewhat expand from a very low read as well. We got down to a 1 read, just over a 1 read on the 4th of October. So that was about a little bit more than a week ago, I guess. And starting to expand from there, but slow, moving like molasses, similar to what you see back on over here. But just like you see back on over here, what happens after you get down to these single-digit reads and even a 0 read a couple days, it looks like as well. Well, there's your major massive breakout from low 9,000 all the way up to a cumulative price of about 12,500. And just more importantly, long-term, Bitcoin just holds the uptrend. And now that we have the weekly close, officially in place, not only is Bitcoin holding the weekly 21, but it's actually holding all major moving averages up above the 10 simple currently speaking. I'm actually going to take everything away right now, and we'll just briefly reference this as well. I know that it's simple as fuck. I know that it's not anything too crazy, not anything too diabolical, but it's just been historically relevant that anytime that Bitcoin is above that yellow 21 exponential moving average on the weekly and it has a positive slope, there's your Boo Law markets going all the way back to 2012 right here. Same thing for the downside when you flip it upside down. Same thing over here from 2015 to 2018, all the way from 250 to 20,000. Same thing, in this bear market in 2018. Same thing over here in this bull market. Same thing over here more recently. And of course, with it still close with the closing above all major moving averages, they're going to naturally have a positive slope with the 21 and the 10 simple going to be governing the short-term price action. So yes, where is the 10 simple? 11,100ish region. So if Bitcoin does want to come back down there and test there, and I bet that it does actually this week too. I certainly actually would be looking for a move back down to test around that region 11.1 that is. But I'd also be looking for it to bounce this week here too. Looking at momentum oscillators for the weekly, guess what? We're actually going to see the weekly Stokes freshly cross the upside. As we referenced yesterday, that's also going to be essentially keeping it within the bullish control zone or around the bullish control zone, which is important, of course, and likely going to drive my bias that yes, we do see that continuation up to about 11,800ish region, probably before anything else, and then maybe a short-term pullback from there, and then come back and reanalysize it. Looking at weekly RSI, what do we see? Again, I really like this weekly RSI read right here. It's a very constructive over a long period of time, been going all the way back to May of this year, and reaching for the bullish control zone. Again, this going to likely take its time, but it does suggest that this whole formation right here is more or less constructive and more or less good, and more or less does have an upside resolution from it, of which we're kind of already looking at that, especially with the weekly closure that we got above this major massive liquid zone that Bitcoin's been getting rejected from ever since January 2018. Also the 0.5 fib here as well, and also if you look at it from a volume profile profile standpoint, you can see very easily that everything just kind of like drops off the fucking cliff above this region. And Bitcoin actually got its first closure above, or maybe even inside this blue box territory in August. And ever since then, I do believe that things have been like more or less different on the macro scale, that Bitcoin building a base above 10,000 is a change of behavior, because it really hasn't been able to do that before. I mean, it's only a very small stints above it. And this is the most prolonged time above 10,000 that Bitcoin's ever had in its history. So that does deserve a little bit of respect as well. And if Bitcoin does, break above the last prior highs right here at about 12,000, you're going to have your natural targets at the 382 and the 236 as well. And that is going to still be relevant onwards and forwards from here, but, that's still quite far away. I mean, we're talking like, we're probably talking like, well, we're not really talking about any time frame. There's no time frame included on that. It's just probably going to take a long time. Anyways, looking at the daily right here on our secondary charts, we did meet the criteria that I was looking for to keep the current trend in motion. And that is this. It's very, 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 very simple, but looking at the Bollinger Bands right here, while historical volatility percentile, by the way, expands on the lower term timeframes, I think that's very important to reference. While you do look at this, which is kind of like a volatility-based indicator as well, Bitcoin keeping it above the topside Bollinger Band does say that we're still in the process of trending, and I would basically hold on to what I've been saying about that for the last few days. Bitcoin is up and in the process of moving to the upside as long as that condition is met. So all these things working together does make me think that yes, Bitcoin will take another leg up here first before anything else, and then we probably played a pullback from like 11.8. Looking at DMI in ADX, we do see that the DMI plus obviously dominant. We identified this yesterday. The ADX strengthening at the same time as well. Plus MACD also taking out the last few histogram highs, plus also getting above the zero read and increasing as time goes on. That is also going to be very important, because Bitcoin is not just doing that, it's doing that while breaking a major resistance that happened on Friday above 11,000. So that means momentum turning up while the area gets actually broken. That also, adding on to the slew of things kind of confirming that breakout. And that is why I do remain, I guess, more or less bullish right here, a Bula-ish. Here's what the weekly looks like. Yeah, weekly closed above everything. I mean, looks more or less good. Topside Bollinger Band should be a natural resistance if we were to get there. I'm not saying that we are going to get there. That's technically all the way at about 12,500-ish region, but an area of interest nonetheless, basically your last prior high as well. So nothing too crazy right there. And I think that pretty much does it for what I want to say about Bitcoin. How much time are we even in here? About 21.5 minutes. Yeah. Let's quickly go over to traditional markets as well, of which I'd imagine that if Bitcoin's going up, they're probably going to be going up as well. And what do you know? This was the inverted head and shoulders that we identified on NASDAQ and also SPY futures last week, breaking out. And I believe that this one has more to go here. Yes, short term could it play a pullback from this region? Yes, I don't really have a strong opinion on that. If it does play a pullback anywhere around, what is this level, about 11,600 is fine. However, long term though, I do believe, let's just go to my regular chart right here. How about this? A little bit easier to see too. Let's see, where is my NAS? Where you at, NAS? Where you at, you little fuckface? There you are, found you. All right, nice one. Oops, let's go to this one as well. Looking at this right here, there is targets to be made off this as well. Of course, currently hovering in this blue box territory is going to be a short-term resistance. That's why I don't really want to make a call of whether backs up from this area or not in the short term. If it does, 11.6 where I'd be looking for and probably bounce there. However, if it does move with Bitcoin, and if it actually does break to the upside above this 11.8 area first with a 4-hour closure above there, I would look for extension towards the full move of about 12,000. Which is actually our last weekly closing highs right here. So that would be a natural pushback point as well. And I would be looking for a pullback from that region. Again, $12,000. Doesn't mean that it can't track continuation later than that, but I would be looking for a big pullback from there. SPY futures, what do we see? Same thing. This one actually would imply a new high based off the measure move from its inverted head and shoulders here, going all the way up towards 3560-ish region, which I feel a little bit dirty saying, like, that's quite the fucking move right there. I do think that it would be relevant to be looking at this area as a resistance area, and maybe even make it a liquid zone right here. That would look about right. But based off that, I mean that's basically implying that we're gonna close on new highs, and then this is certainly not going to work out as as a macro high. And I mean, realistically, like, what's the next major areas to be targeting? I suppose if that condition were to be met, 3,700 fib extension right here. I don't really have anything else to go go off of at this point. It's just going to be kind of in blue sky breakout territory if that were to happen. But I imagine that, NASDAQ and this one are going to trade very, very similarly. And I think NASDAQ's a little bit of an easier chart to read right now. Again, going back to this one, we'll quickly look at some Forex and then probably wrap this bitch up as let's see what euro dollars, motherfucker, man, goddamn euro dollar, yeah, probably going up too. It's all going up. I imagine Dixie's going down on the Dixies. And yes, yeah, I'd be looking for this one to come back down to like 92.50, anywhere around 92.50 to about 92 even, actually. And then I'd be looking for another potential major low to be put in somewhere right around here. I do still think that we are looking at a major macro low for Dixie, but as we stated before, it's probably going to take its time, if anything, and can definitely come back down to this level right here and still kind of maintain that higher low structure while still also having potential hidden bullish divergence in play here too. So with all of that in mind, I do still look at this as likely a long-term reversal area. Again, based off of historical volatility percentile, that's very obviously telling us that we are in one major formation right here, while momentum also just come all the way down to the same trend line that, by the way, has been getting all the lows since fucking 2003, by the way. And this would be a higher low within the context of this trend. So, putting a lot of things together, plus the hidden bullish divergence, I do still think that this is long term in a reversal area. Short term probably comes down, though, to be fair, and probably like significantly down all the way here. So that would be, Bitcoin probably going back up to the upper 11,000, maybe even 12,000. Traditional markets, same thing. Probably is a little bit of up during this time. But for right now, yes, this one is short term and medium term bearish. Long term and macro, I still hold on to this one as more or less in a reversal. So yeah, there it is. And I think this is going to be a good point for me to actually wrap up this video, mostly because we could do a Forex video later. I'm gonna be looking at it, and I'm actually still not sure if I should actually do it. I'll probably post like a video a few times and see if there's any interest. If there's not, then I won't, and if there is, then I will. And if and right now, I think that's pretty much it for what I want to say. I guess we could actually, no, it's only 26 minutes in this video. Let's go check out Mr. Buteral. What's Mr. Buteral doing right now? What you doing, yes, sir? 373 and a quarter. What's the daily looking like? Very similar to Bitcoin in a lot of ways. Closed on new highs right there. Probably does have a backfill on yesterday's open, somewhere around 370. But would I be looking for a bounce there? Yeah, I would be looking for a bounce there. Flagging out at a high level as well. Next natural target to the upside would be somewhere around like 385 to 390-ish region. If Bitcoin wants to follow through to the upside as well. I'm curious how the weekly looks like here too. Weekly close pretty damn good. If it like I said, if it does want to come back down, actually, no, I can't say that, but yes, to the upside, still about 390 would be the next area that I'd be looking for, and probably short-term pullback from there. Anywhere above this high right here, 14th of September, big issue. That would be basically like $400. It's technically 398 and a half. If that condition were to be met, I'd be looking for extension all the way back up to like 430 and probably beyond. I mean, this would look like this. I mean, look pretty damn good. Short term, though, is there any sort of a short term pivot to be operating off of? Yeah, I could say 369 or 370 for the short term for changing bias boner to the downside once again. What else do we want to look at? Did Monero break out? Because Monero was actually doing some pretty interesting stuff. Where is my Monero chart? It's a real question. They all look the fucking same. All these charts look the goddamn same. Where is it? Seriously. Okay, there it is. Found it. Ha! Found it. Nice. Okay, did Monero move yesterday? I believe it did. Oh, nice one. Okay, sweet. All right, so Monero did hit our short-term target back up to about 130-ish region. I would be looking for a short-term pullback here, though, and play within this range between about 115 and 130, and probably does set it up for a breakout longer term to the upside. We do have new highs, obviously, above these June 2019 highs right here. I think that is very, very important to reflect upon. Although short-term, yes, I would be looking for this one to push back. Long term, I do believe that this one is looking at its reversal seriously play out like right in front of our very eyes. So again, short term, yes, pullback, probably even all the way back down to like 115 region. But after that, long term, over the next few months, I'll be looking for this one to actually move much, much higher. Maybe even all the way back up to like 150 or 169 region. Looks about right to me. Now, of course, that's months down the road, but for right now, with this last weekly closure, that does set those biases in check. So with that in mind, I think I'll go back to, or actually no, let's go check out Link. What did Link do? Did Link bounce off our area? It did hit our, I believe it did hit our 88,000 Satoshi target. Yeah, it did. Hey, nice one. This one's looking like it wants to turn back up to me again. I want to give credit to one of the guys in the Discord, Solverine, for calling this one out. Looking at a read like this alongside the fib on the jewel, is this one likely to bounce up from this region? Probably yes. I don't think that this is not going to be working out as hidden bearish divergence, or at least inaccurately so. Caretaker's RSI has not identified this as hidden bearish divergence like at all. Hasn't even identified it as a local high right here, which it is not. So fucking great shit right there, man. Love it. Absolutely fucking love it. Short term, I'll probably be looking for this one to pop back up towards 100,000 Satoshis. Anywhere above 100,000 Satoshis, I'd extend runs quite a fair bit back up to about 110,000 Satoshis and maybe beyond. What does a weekly look like? Yeah, weekly still looking good, and probably does reach again for like 110,000 Satoshis. Looks good. Does that mean that most alts are going to be bouncing here? Well, let's go check out Cardano. Well, the Cardano car dealers, do they get to bounce up as well? Probably yes. Probably back up towards 1,000 Satoshis. So there you go. There you go. Is there anything else we want to cover here before we leave you off? I think not, actually. What about Uni? Does Uni going to bounce up too? I think it is. I think it's even bounced up. Oh man, am I still poor? Am I still poor with my Unis? It's bounced up 20.5%. Well, that sounds great until you look at the last, the last fucking moves here. Okay, let's just pretend that didn't happen. All right, back on to Bitcoin, and let's wrap this bitch up. If I am making a very, 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 very short-term time frame range, what I would be doing is I'd go down to a 2-hour, nothing less, and I'd use this level right here to govern a short-term move. That would be 11,300. If 11,300 does get broken to the downside on a 2-hour total closure, I'll be looking for a move back down to test around like 11,000 even or 11,100-ish region, and very likely a bounce there as well. And I am long-term bullish as long as Bitcoin's closing dailies above 11,000 essentially. However, I actually don't think that that's going to be happening. Again, that's my opinion, not technical analysis. It's not financial advice. I'm not a financial advisor. Blah, 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 blah. Go fuck yourself. Just kidding. You don't got to go fuck yourself, but maybe I should go fuck myself. Yeah, above 11,420, let's call it, or 450, if you want to just use a nice, easy to remember number. Then yes, I would be looking for extension towards about 11.8 over the next few days or whatever it ends up being. And that's personally what my opinion does think that Bitcoin's going to do here. Flagging out at a top level like this is more or less good. Anyways, with that said, I'd like to leave you off right there. Take care. Wish you the best of the best once again, and until next time.